Fear is one of the most powerful emotions we experience. It has the ability to stop us before we even take the first step, to silence our voice when we should speak, and to limit the life we are meant to live. Confidence, on the other hand, is not about being fearless. It is about moving forward even when fear is present. Building lasting confidence is not a gift that some people are born with. It is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and strengthened over time. The first step to beating fear is to understand it. Fear is not your enemy. It is your brain's way of protecting you from the unknown. It whispers, stay safe. Don't take the risk. But safety often keeps us from growth. When we acknowledge fear as a natural part of being human, we take away its power to control us. The problem is not that fear exists, but that we allow it to make decisions on our behalf. The second step is action. Confidence is not built in theory. It is built through experience. Every time you act in spite of fear, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the voice that told you to stop. Whether it's speaking up in a meeting, approaching someone you admire, or trying something you've never done before, confidence grows in direct proportion to the actions you take. Small steps matter because each step teaches your brain, I can handle this. Another important truth is that confidence is not about perfection. Many people wait until they feel ready before they begin, but readiness is an illusion. The most confident people are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who learn quickly and move forward anyway. The path to lasting confidence is built on resilience, the ability to fall, learn, and rise again. Surroundings also shape your confidence. The people you spend time with either amplify your fear or nurture your growth. When you are surrounded by those who believe in you, who encourage you to take risks and remind you of your strengths, your confidence has a safe place to grow. Choose carefully who you allow to influence your mindset. Finally, confidence is sustained through contribution. When you shift your focus from yourself to others, fear begins to shrink. Fear says, what if I fail? What if I look foolish? But confidence asks, how can I serve? How can I help? When your actions are rooted in purpose beyond yourself, the weight of fear becomes lighter and the courage to act becomes natural. So beating fear and building lasting confidence is not about erasing fear from your life. It is about understanding it, acting in spite of it, learning through it, surrounding yourself with the right people, and finding purpose greater than yourself. Confidence is not a destination. It is a daily practice. And when practiced, it becomes a lifelong companion. 5 keynotes of the speech, fear is natural. When it loses power, when we understand it instead of letting it control us. Confidence is built through consistent action, not theory. Small steps create big change. Confidence does not come from perfection, but from resilience and learning from failure. The environment and people around us play a critical role in either amplifying fear or fostering confidence. Lasting confidence grows when we shift our focus from ourselves to serving and contributing to others. Fear is a natural part of being human. It is built into our biology, rooted in survival instincts that have protected us for thousands of years. When our ancestors faced danger in the wild, fear triggered the fight or flight response that kept them alive. That same system still operates within us today. But in modern life, fear is not usually about wild animals or life-threatening situations. It is about speaking in public, starting a new career, pursuing a dream, or stepping into the unknown. The problem is not that fear exists, because fear is not our enemy. The problem is that we often give fear more power than it deserves, allowing it to hold us back from growth, opportunity, and the life we want to create. When you look at fear closely, you begin to see that it is not always logical. The body reacts with the same intensity, whether the threat is real or imagined. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios. The brain is simply doing what it was designed to do, keep you safe. It cannot always distinguish between an actual threat and a challenge that only feels risky. For example, speaking in front of a crowd is not a life or death event, but your body may still react as though it is. Understanding this basic truth allows us to reframe fear. It is not a signal to stop, but a signal that something important is happening, that you are stepping into territory that matters. By seeing fear for what it is, you can strip away much of its power. Think of fear as a messenger. It arrives to alert you that you are moving towards something uncertain. The mistake most people make is interpreting that message as a command. They hear fear and immediately retreat. But fear is not a command. It is only a suggestion. You still have the choice to act. Once you understand this, fear stops being an immovable wall and becomes more like a gate you can choose to walk through. Another way to understand fear is to recognize that it thrives in the absence of clarity. The more unknowns there are, the louder fear becomes. If you are about to start a new business, your mind may flood with doubts. What if it fails? What if people laugh? What if I lose everything? These questions fuel anxiety because they are open-ended and undefined. But when you shine light on the unknown by gathering information, making a plan, breaking big goals into smaller steps, the fear begins to shrink. Understanding that fear feeds on uncertainty gives you the power to reduce its influence by seeking knowledge and preparation. It is also important to see fear as temporary. In the moment, fear feels overwhelming, like it will last forever. But in reality, fear is often strongest before you act. Think about times in your life when you dreaded doing something, maybe making a difficult phone call or walking into a room full of strangers. Beforehand, your mind was full of worry. But once you took the step, you noticed the fear fading. Action is the antidote to fear, and the first step is always the hardest. Understanding that fear weakens after action helps you push through the initial resistance instead of believing the feeling will consume you. Many people believe that confident individuals are fearless, but that is not true. Confident people simply understand fear differently. They recognize it as part of the process rather than as a sign to stop. They have trained themselves to expect fear and not be surprised by it. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of fear? They ask, how do I move forward with it? That shift in perspective is powerful. It changes fear from a barrier into a companion, a reminder that you are growing, stretching, and stepping into something meaningful. Fear also reveals what matters most to us. You rarely feel fear about things that don't matter. You feel it when something is close to your heart, when failure would sting, or when the stakes are high. That is why fear is not always negative. It is evidence that you are pursuing something that could shape your future. When you understand fear in this way, it becomes a signal of alignment, showing you what is worth your effort and courage. At the end of the day, fear will always be present. It cannot be erased, but it can be understood. By seeing fear as natural, recognizing it as a messenger, reducing its fuel of uncertainty, and realizing its temporary nature, you take away its control. Confidence is not built in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it. And understanding fear is the first step in making sure it never holds you hostage. Confidence is not something that appears out of thin air, nor is it a permanent trait that a person is either born with or without. Confidence is built through action, and it grows stronger every time you take a step forward despite your doubts. Many people wait until they feel ready before they act, believing that confidence must come first. But the truth is the opposite. Confidence is the result of doing, not the prerequisite for it. Each action you take, no matter how small, proves to yourself that you are capable. And this proof lays the foundation for lasting confidence. Think of the first time someone learns to ride a bicycle. At the beginning, fear and uncertainty dominate. The child wobbles, falls, and questions whether they can ever balance. But with each attempt, the action itself teaches the body and mind a valuable lesson. I can do this. The confidence to ride does not come from standing on the sidelines imagining success. It comes from repeated practice, from engaging in the act itself. This principle applies to every area of life. Confidence grows only when you are willing to move, to try, and to keep going even when it feels uncomfortable. Small actions matter more than we realize. When fear looms large, people often think they must take a giant leap to overcome it. But great confidence is not built in single grand gestures. It is built in the consistent, repeated, small actions that accumulate over time. Speaking up once in a meeting, introducing yourself to one new person, or trying one new skill may not seem transformative in the moment. Yet each small act is like a brick in the foundation of confidence. Over weeks and months, those bricks form a structure strong enough to carry you through far greater challenges. Every action also creates a memory, and memory is the evidence your brain uses to measure your capability. When you take action and succeed, even in a small way, you store proof that you can handle challenges. The next time you face a similar situation, your mind recalls, I've done this before, and I can do it again. This creates a cycle where each new action reinforces the belief in your ability, which in turn encourages you to take even more action. Confidence does not come from wishing or waiting. It comes from building a track record of effort and resilience. Failure plays a role in this process as well. Many people assume that failure destroys confidence, but in truth, failure is an essential ingredient in building it. When you fail and continue to act, you prove to yourself that setbacks are not the end. You learn that you are stronger than disappointment, and that mistakes are not a reflection of your worth, but stepping stones to growth. Each failure faced with persistence is another lesson added to your library of experience. And that experience deepens your confidence far more than easy victories ever could. Another important part of building confidence through action is embracing discomfort. Growth and comfort rarely coexist. If you only act when it feels safe, your confidence will remain fragile and limited. True confidence is built in the moments when you stretch beyond your comfort zone, when you risk being seen, judged, or misunderstood. Each time you step into discomfort and discover you can handle it, your self-belief expands. The discomfort fades, but the confidence gained stays with you. The rhythm of action and growth is also contagious. When you begin to act consistently, people around you notice. They see the courage in your steps, and their reactions can reinforce your confidence further. A kind word, a gesture of support, or even the acknowledgement of your effort adds fuel to your progress. While confidence is ultimately an inner journey, external affirmation along the way reminds you that your actions are visible and impactful. This creates a reinforcing loop where your courage inspires others, and their encouragement strengthens your confidence. Perhaps the most liberating truth about confidence is that it does not require grand achievements to grow. It requires willingness. The willingness to act, to try, to stumble, and to rise again is what makes the difference between staying stuck in fear and moving into growth. Confidence is not something waiting for you at the finish line of success. It is something you create on the journey itself. With each step forward, you teach yourself that you are capable, and capability breeds trust in your own strength. In the end, confidence is not a mysterious quality reserved for a lucky few. It is the natural byproduct of consistent action. Every small effort, every risk taken, every attempt made adds to the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you can achieve. Over time, those actions accumulate into unshakable belief. You begin to know, not just hope, that you can face challenges, take opportunities, and step boldly into the unknown. And it all begins not with waiting to feel ready, but with choosing to act. Confidence is often misunderstood as the absence of mistakes, the ability to perform perfectly without flaw, or the sense of being fully prepared before stepping forward. In reality, true confidence has very little to do with perfection and everything to do with resilience. It is not about never stumbling, but about the willingness to recover when you do. The people who appear most confident are not immune to error or failure. They simply refuse to let those moments define them. Instead, they use every setback as raw material to grow stronger, to learn more, and to prove to themselves that they can endure. Perfectionism often traps people in cycles of inaction. They wait for the perfect conditions, the perfect preparation, or the perfect moment before they dare to act. But waiting for perfection is like waiting for a train that will never arrive. The reality is that no one is ever completely ready. Confidence grows in the act of doing, and mistakes are an unavoidable part of that process. When someone insists on avoiding failure at all costs, they rob themselves of the opportunity to build resilience, which is the very foundation of lasting confidence. Resilience is the muscle that allows us to stand back up after we fall. Just like a muscle, it strengthens with repeated use. Every time you face a failure and choose to continue, you are exercising that muscle. The first fall may feel devastating, but with each experience, the weight of failure becomes lighter. You begin to see failure not as an end, but as a teacher. And with every lesson learned, you grow less afraid of stumbling again. That reduction in fear is what allows confidence to take root and expand. Consider someone learning to play an instrument. In the beginning, their fingers fumble across the strings or keys, producing awkward and clumsy sounds. They may feel frustrated, even embarrassed by their lack of ability. But each mistake they make guides them toward the correct technique. Each misstep is information, not evidence of incompetence. Over time, the repeated experience of getting it wrong and adjusting creates skill, and with skill comes confidence. If they had quit the moment mistakes appeared, they would never have discovered the beauty that persistence could produce. This principle applies far beyond music or skill building. In relationships, in leadership, in personal growth, mistakes are inevitable. You will say the wrong thing, make the wrong choice, or take the wrong path at some point. What matters is not that you avoided the error, but that you were willing to acknowledge it, learn from it, and move forward. That cycle builds trust in yourself. You begin to believe that even if things do not go perfectly, you have the ability to recover. That belief is far more powerful than a fragile sense of confidence that depends on everything going right. The truth is, confidence that comes from perfection is shallow and unstable. The moment perfection slips, which it inevitably will, the confidence collapses. Confidence built on resilience, however, is unshakable. It tells you, I can handle whatever comes my way. Even if I fall, I will rise again. That type of confidence endures because it is not tied to outcomes. It is tied to your capacity to respond. It does not depend on controlling everything, but on trusting yourself to adapt to anything. Resilient confidence also changes the way you view challenges. Instead of dreading obstacles, you begin to see them as opportunities to grow. Each difficulty becomes another chance to strengthen your ability to recover. The fear of failure diminishes because you no longer see failure as catastrophic. You understand that failure is temporary, while the lessons and strength gained from it are lasting. This perspective frees you to take bolder steps, to pursue greater goals, and to step into situations that once seemed overwhelming. Another important dimension of resilience is self-compassion. Many people are harsh on themselves when they fail, which deepens the wound and discourages them from trying again. But resilience requires treating yourself with patience, forgiveness, and kindness. When you acknowledge that mistakes are a natural part of growth, you silence the inner critic that demands perfection. This gentleness with yourself creates the mental space needed to keep moving forward instead of getting stuck in shame or regret. With every act of self-compassion, your resilience grows stronger, and so does your confidence. Ultimately, lasting confidence is not about eliminating mistakes or chasing perfection. It is about trusting yourself to face challenges, recover from setbacks, and keep moving despite imperfection. It is about building a deep belief that you are capable, not because you never fail, but because you always return stronger. Confidence built on resilience is steady, adaptable, and enduring. It does not crumble under pressure because it was never built on the illusion of flawlessness. It was built on the truth of human growth, the ability to learn, to adapt, and to rise after every fall. The environment we surround ourselves with and the people we choose to keep close play an enormous role in shaping our sense of confidence. Human beings are social creatures deeply influenced by the attitudes, words, and behaviors of those around them. Confidence is not built in isolation. While it begins with personal action and resilience, it is sustained and amplified by the atmosphere we live in and the voices we allow into our minds. If you are surrounded by people who constantly highlight your weaknesses, question your abilities, or discourage your dreams, fear becomes louder and confidence withers. On the other hand, when you are in an environment where support, belief, and encouragement are present, your confidence has fertile ground to grow. From a young age, much of what we believe about ourselves comes from the reflections of others. Children who are encouraged to try to explore and to learn through mistakes often develop a strong sense of confidence. Those who are constantly criticized or compared may grow hesitant, afraid to take risks, and doubtful of their own potential. This does not stop in childhood. Even as adults, our confidence continues to be shaped by the tone and energy of those we interact with. It is why people can feel fearless and capable in one group, yet uncertain and small in another. The external voices around us often become internal ones, influencing how we speak to ourselves. The environment is not only about people, it is also about the spaces and systems we live in. An environment filled with constant negativity, chaos, or lack of opportunity makes it harder for confidence to thrive. Conversely, a space that provides safety, encouragement, and opportunities to take risks without fear of harsh judgment allows us to test our abilities and grow stronger. For instance, a workplace where mistakes are treated as learning opportunities fosters far more confident employees than one where errors are punished severely. The difference lies in whether the environment amplifies fear or cultivates growth. This is why it is vital to choose carefully who and what we expose ourselves to. If we spend most of our time with people who focus only on limitations, we begin to internalize those limitations. But when we surround ourselves with individuals who see potential, who challenge us to rise, and who remind us of our strengths, we gain courage to pursue things we might otherwise avoid. Confidence is contagious. Being around those who act with courage and optimism inspires us to do the same. Their belief in us can serve as a mirror that reflects back possibilities we may not yet see for ourselves. It is not about seeking constant praise or avoiding criticism. Healthy environments still challenge us, still point out areas of improvement, but they do so in ways that strengthen rather than shatter confidence. Constructive feedback is different from destructive criticism. The first says, "You can do better, and I believe you can." The second says, "You are not good enough, and you never will be." The words we hear repeatedly shape our inner dialogue, and our inner dialogue determines how confidently we step into the world. There is also a responsibility on our part to protect our environment. We cannot always control where we live, where we work, or the circumstances we face, but we can make deliberate choices about the influences we let take root in our lives. This might mean limiting time with people who drain your energy, seeking mentors who inspire you, or creating habits that bring positivity into your daily routine. Even small changes like reading books that uplift you, listening to empowering voices, or practicing gratitude contribute to building an environment where confidence can breathe. Another aspect is the power of community. Being part of a group that shares your values and encourages your growth provides strength during moments of doubt. When you see others striving, failing, and persisting, it normalizes the process of growth and reminds you that confidence is not a solitary journey. Communities provide accountability, encouragement, and the reassurance that you are not alone in your struggles. That sense of belonging strengthens confidence because it reassures you that your efforts matter not just to yourself, but to others as well. Confidence often shrinks in isolation. When fear is left unchallenged, it grows louder in our minds. But when we share our doubts with people who support us, the fear loses its grip. Others can offer perspective, reminding us of strengths we may overlook when we are caught in self-doubt. They can push us forward when we hesitate and celebrate with us when we succeed. This collective energy builds a cycle where confidence is not only nurtured but sustained. Ultimately, the people and environments we choose are like the soil in which our confidence grows. In poor soil, growth is stunted no matter how much effort we put in. In rich soil, even the smallest seed of self-belief can flourish into something lasting. Confidence does not grow in a vacuum. It grows in the spaces and relationships we cultivate. By surrounding ourselves with those who see the best in us, and by creating environments that encourage growth rather than fear, we give our confidence the space to strengthen and endure. Lasting confidence is not sustained by constant self-focus, but by shifting our attention outward towards serving and contributing to others. Fear thrives in the spotlight of self-centered thinking. It whispers, "What if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if others judge me?" When we place ourselves at the center of every scenario, fear magnifies our insecurities and makes action feel paralyzing. Confidence, however, grows when we stop asking, "What will happen to me?" and start asking, "How can I help? How can I add value? How can I make a difference here?" That shift in perspective transforms the energy of fear into the energy of contribution. And in that moment, confidence becomes not about proving yourself, but about serving a purpose greater than yourself. Think about times when you've been nervous before speaking in front of a group. If your focus was on how you would look, how your voice would sound, or how others might perceive you, fear likely consumed you. But if you shifted your attention to the audience, thinking about how your words could help them, inspire them, or encourage them, the fear would have begun to shrink. This is because service displaces self-consciousness. When your purpose is to give, you are no longer trapped by the fear of how you are seen. Your confidence becomes anchored in the impact you want to make rather than the image you want to protect. Contributing to others also creates meaning, and meaning sustains confidence over time. When your actions are tied to something bigger than personal gain, every step you take feels worthwhile. Even when challenges come, you are more willing to persevere because the purpose behind your effort matters deeply. For example, a teacher who believes their work changes lives will stand in front of a classroom despite fears of failure or criticism because their commitment to their students outweighs their personal doubts. The focus on contribution fuels resilience and in turn builds unshakable confidence. Another way contribution builds confidence is through connection. When you give your time, energy, or skills to others, You create bonds that reinforce your sense of worth. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable of bringing value to the lives of others. This external feedback loops back into your self-perception, strengthening your belief in your abilities. When someone tells you that your advice helped them or that your effort made their day easier, it is not just a compliment, it is evidence. And evidence is the foundation upon which confidence stands. Contribution also diminishes the fear of failure. When you are focused solely on yourself, failure feels devastating, as though it defines your entire worth. But when your aim is to serve, failure becomes simply a part of the process of learning how to do better for others. It is not about you, it is about improving the way you can deliver value. This mindset makes you braver because you are no longer afraid of looking imperfect. You are motivated instead by the desire to make a positive difference. Confidence grows because the fear of judgment is overshadowed by the drive to contribute. There is a unique strength that comes from recognizing that your presence matters to others. Knowing that your actions can uplift, support, or inspire someone else gives you courage you may not otherwise find. Parents often discover this when raising children. Even when they doubt their own abilities, they rise to the occasion because they know their children depend on them. Leaders experience the same truth when guiding their teams. They find confidence not because they never doubt themselves, but because they know their guidance impacts others. When you tie your actions to responsibility for others, fear becomes less persuasive and confidence becomes a natural response. The act of contributing also creates a cycle of growth. The more you give, the more you see the impact of your actions, and the more you trust yourself to continue giving. This reinforces confidence not as a fragile, fleeting feeling, but as a steady belief in your ability to create value in the world. Over time, this cycle transforms how you see yourself. You no longer need to convince yourself that you are capable. You have living proof in the results of your contribution. What makes this approach so powerful is that it removes the pressure to be perfect. When your goal is to serve, imperfection becomes irrelevant. People do not need you to be flawless to make a difference. They need you to be present, willing, and authentic. Confidence grows not from impressing others with perfection, but from impacting them with sincerity. When you embrace this, you no longer chase approval, you focus on purpose. And purpose gives confidence roots that are deep and enduring. In the end, shifting focus from yourself to others is one of the most effective ways to silence fear and build lasting confidence. Fear asks you to look inward and shrink. Contribution asks you to look outward and expand. The more you practice serving, giving, and helping, the more natural it becomes to act courageously. And in that practice, confidence stops being a fragile state of mind and becomes a natural expression of living with purpose. Confidence is not about eliminating fear, nor is it about striving for perfection or waiting for the perfect moment to act. It is about understanding fear as a natural part of being human, choosing to take consistent action in spite of it, and building resilience each time you fall and rise again. It is about surrounding yourself with the right people and environments that nurture your growth rather than feed your doubt. And above all, it is about shifting your focus from yourself to others, finding purpose in contribution, and letting that purpose give you the courage to keep moving forward. Fear will always be present, but it does not have to be in control. Confidence is not a gift reserved for a select few. It is a practice available to anyone willing to embrace the process of growth. The more we choose to act, to learn, to serve, and to rise, the stronger our confidence becomes, until it no longer feels like a fleeting moment, but a steady, lasting presence in our lives.